This is the proponent statement for the community issue review. So, can you tell me who you are and how you're involved in this community?
My name is Dwight Miller. I'm the manager of financial services for the borough. So I oversee all the financial services here at the borough, including assisting with the budget and preparing the regular financial reports for council.
Great. And we're going to start with some background. Can you tell me briefly how you would define this issue that we're reviewing?
Well, the issue, as I see it, is that the borough's revenue sources, first of all, are limited in the types of revenue sources it has available. And then over the last 10 years, the amount of revenue in aggregate has been relatively static because of the function of the way that real estate taxes work and the fact that there have not been any real estate reassessment since 1995. So the only way that the borough can generate additional revenue, especially through real estate taxes, is by raising the rate of taxes. And we know that generally expenses will go up by at least inflation on an annual basis. So the borough's been kind of caught between this stagnant revenue and growing expenses. And over the last couple of years, the borough has been running budget deficits on an annual basis and using up fund balance, using up a piggy bank, if you will, to balance the annual budget. And so the leadership here at the borough over the last year pushed the borough council to increase revenue to stop running those deficits. And what it does is it causes bumps in tax increases. So we go a couple of years with no tax increase, we run into this deficit situation, and then council has to raise taxes a significant amount to overcome that. And so the taxpayers see these years of flat taxes and then a big bump, and then years of flat taxes and a big bump. So under my proposal, we would see regular incremental increases in taxes to compensate for the inflationary increases that we're seeing in expenditures.
And so you have more of a history with this issue and have provided a statement that speaks to some of the motivation for being in favor of this position. Can you tell me maybe a little bit more about your position in line with the major points that you outlined in your statement?
Well, the issue is that real estate taxes remain stagnant unless you can grow the natural base, the assessed base. And as we know, the borough is pretty much landlocked. There's no more vacant land to be developed in the borough. So the only way that the borough sees regular revenue increases is through rate increases because there's not room for development, other than a few of the newer high-rises that we've seen. So the only way the borough can grow its assessed value is by going up. And we know that a lot of our citizens in the community are really not in favor of increasing the height of buildings downtown. So the only way that the borough really has to increase revenue under the current circumstances is to increase the rate that's charged on the assessed value.
And would you say that also speaks to why you're advocating for this issue and why it's important to this community right now?
Yeah, I think it's important to this community because it provides some certainty for taxpayers. If we continue on the current trend, we'll run deficits for a few years, and then we'll maybe see some new council members. They'll recognize that that's not good fiscal responsibility to run deficits, and we'll see big bumps in real estate taxes. And taxpayers don't know how to anticipate that, and when they have a year of large tax increases, sometimes that's a burden, especially on citizens who are on fixed income or retirement income. If we can build in an incremental increase, an inflationary type increase into that tax rate, then citizens know what to expect. They know that their taxes are likely to keep pace with inflation on a regular basis. They can plan for that, and they can vote for that. If they like the services that the borough provides and they don't mind paying inflationary increases in their taxes, I think it provides more certainty for the taxpayers and for the borough in terms of anticipating revenue. It helps the borough plan for the future, and it helps the taxpayers plan.
Okay. And so, can you tell me can you tell me a little bit about the process that needs to take place in order to have this be adopted by the State College Borough government?
Okay. Typically what happens during the budget process is the council hears from the citizens that are usually against something. The majority of time that council hears about something, they don't hear from individuals who are in favor of it because they usually just don't take any action. So during that budget process, whenever council is considering a tax increase or tax rate increase, they generally only hear from the citizens that are against it, not from the citizens that are for it. So the process that I think needs to happen is more citizens who like the services and the lifestyle here in the borough and wouldn't mind inflationary type tax increases should come to public meetings and make their voice heard. They should come and tell council, I'm in favor of putting an inflationary tax increase right into the budget. We should do that. I don't mind that. As a taxpayer, I'm in favor of that, and I think that council should consider that. That would be a way that council members could feel comfortable that at least some set of the borough citizenship would be comfortable and would be in favor of that. Generally, public officials shy away from that word of tax increase unless they hear support from it, because most of the time they don't hear support from it. So I think that if citizens came during the budget process and even during the summer to public meetings and express, hey, I've heard this proposal on the street, I think it's a good idea, I support that kind of proposal, then I think council would be more comfortable enacting something like that.
And who would actually draft the proposal?
Council would ask staff to put something together. It's really just a budget policy kind of issue. We have budget policies already built in that talk about what kind of debt the borough would be willing to incur. We have asset policies, we have procurement policies, and we have other types of budget policies. And if borough wanted to enact something like that, they would tell the staff, hey, we would like to include a new policy into our budget policies that sets a minimum inflationary increase on the tax rate, and then staff would actually draft that policy for their consideration.
Okay. And then council would vote on it, and then it would...
Right, they would vote on that, and then it would be included as a policy in the budget document along with our other financial policies.
Great. Is there anything else that you would recommend panelists or other citizens review in order to have a better understanding of this issue or to understand taxes or the budget?
Yes, I think it's important for the general citizens to really understand how real estate taxes work. I think many people understand that if a house sells and a new owner buys, that the assessment value of that home changes and the taxes go up automatically every time a house turns over. And that's really not the case. The assessment value of a home hasn't changed since 1995, and it doesn't change when a home buys or sells. The only time the assessed value changes is when significant improvements are made to that property. A new home is built or significant addition is put on. And even when new development happens, the assessed value of that property is rolled back to 1995. So for example, there's some new high-rises that are going to be coming here in the borough, like the Fraser Center. And the county assessor will request a number of records from that developer, including what the rent is in those facilities, what it costs to build that facility. When the assessor comes up with that market value, if you will, of that high-rise, then he'll apply a ratio to roll that value back to what it would have been in 1995 had the Fraser Center been built then. That becomes the assessed value, and the tax rate is applied to that assessed value. So until we have countywide reassessment and the properties are brought up to their current market values, the assessed values won't change, and so the only way to change real estate tax in aggregate is to increase the rate of tax on those properties. So sometimes we hear the word tax increase. It's a tax rate increase, but when you apply inflation all the way back to 1995, we see that it's really not an increase in taxes. And I've recently completed a 10-year trend analysis of the borough's revenues and expenses. And if you look at the charts in that trend analysis report, you'll see that the real estate tax revenue for the borough has barely kept pace with inflation over the last 10 years.
Great. And is there anything else that you would like to share?
I think it's important for citizens to make their voice heard. Oftentimes we only hear from a handful of citizens at the public meetings, and it's usually the same citizens that come regularly. I think it would be really great if more citizens would get engaged in the process, and especially the budget process, so that council has a comfort feeling about what the citizens really want.
Great. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.